this is Exhibit A of what happens when you have an obsession with identity politics. What happens when the only things that matter to you, when the only thing that matters to you is identitarianism. And that could go for radical gender ideology, like do they check a box? Are they gay? Are they a lesbian? Are they transgender? Or do they check a certain box when it comes to skin pigmentation? Is their skin dark enough? And the left has had this true obsession with identity politics for a long time. And I would say it used to be sort of tame, right? Like, hey, we need more Black representation in spaces. I agree. We need more women in space. I agree. And then it became this absolute obsession where your perceived qualification to do something was not gauged based off of your actual qualifications, but how many boxes you could check. And this story, as salacious as it is a prime example of how that continues in earnest in Washington state. Now, before I get to it, forgive me for the words that I'm going to have to read, and for the pictures that I'm going to have to show you. And YouTube, please be kind. I'm not worried about the other platforms anymore. YouTube, please be kind, because we are, after all, simply trying to hold a public official accountable. So I want to introduce you to Jessica Roberts. So if you just read this story in Lynnwood today, you'd think, well, that is just nice. Good for her. Good for her. It's just a smiling person there. Jessica Roberts selected to fill Lynnwood council vacancy. Well, that seems like a pretty mundane story. Remember, they had tried to already fill a vacancy, but then the person they chose to fill it quickly resigned, so it's their second attempt. So that's the headline. Second time's a charm. Jessica Roberts selected to fill Lynnwood council vacancy. And if you read the whole thing, you would just think, well, there's a nice lady named Jessica, and she is filling the vacancy on the Lynnwood City Council, not a big city, so just kind of a small story. Well, good thing that there's another news outlet in Lynnwood who actually cares about doing just a tiny bit, or even a Google search, really, about the individuals who are selected to fill positions of power in their city. So rather than Lynnwood Today, let's read coverage from the Lynnwood Times, shall we? New Lynnwood City Council member is an OnlyFans model and has alleged explicit Reddit posts about women. So let's get into who Jessica Roberts really is. Well, Jessica Roberts is transgender. So Jessica is a man who identifies as a woman, which again, I don't care. This is an adult. This is Washington State. I do not care if you are an adult and you want to dress and try to look like a woman. We wouldn't be doing a story on Jessica Roberts if the only kind of interesting, different thing about Jessica was transgender. But of course, there's much more than that. So the Lynnwood Times keeps digging. And again, this isn't like this is hidden stuff. They just did the very, very bottom level research that, rabbit hole opened up from there. But let's look into this Jessica Roberts person. So they find out Jessica has a very public, easily accessible OnlyFans account. And in fact, uses the name Jessica and a picture of his face. It's very clearly the same person, right? Well, on this OnlyFans account and elsewhere on the internet, Jessica Roberts likes to post pictures of his itty-bitty titties, as he calls them. And look, I have... Stop it, Nicole. I have blacked these out, but I don't need to, because those are pecs. I don't need to black it out, but just because I don't want the AI algorithm to see it, but I blacked it out anyway. So on OnlyFans, Jessica describes themselves as a bisexual trans woman with itty-bitty titties and a big girl C word. It says, come have a fun time. C-U-M, okay? You get it. So it's a lot of like lifting up the shirt and sort of like bulge pictures. And again, lifting up the shirt is sort of irrelevant because this is a biological man. So there's the kind of run-of-the-mill OnlyFans stuff. And then you get to the Reddit posts. These, according to the Lynnwood Times, and again, forgive me, I don't even know what I can fully read. Some of it I don't even really understand. It sounds like a cannibalism fetish. And I tried to have Nicole Google some things on Urban Dictionary, but I don't think Nicole wants that stuff on her computer, frankly.
I do not.
So forgive me again. So a couple posts here. The discussion is sex with pred before... I can't read that. I can't read that. I mean, how am I supposed to read that? So it's about, performing acts on one another, right? I don't know what a pred is. I'm not gonna look that up. Talking about all the different types of sex that they like, right? But this one really got me. Always love digesting girl meat for lunch. That's the thing that people are calling cannibalistic. Always love digesting girl meat for lunch. And we looked into what the phrase girl meat means, and it's very graphic, but I think it's essentially like the reconstruction of a part for transgender individuals, right? Something like that, okay. Mm-hmm. This one is crazy. My baby fever is so severe right now. This is the, how do you refer to it in Reddit? It's like the
post, or
it's like the topic that people are commenting under, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So some of these are just insane. I love the idea of grabbing a pretty girl and using her as a breeding pet. And once I've gotten her pregnant, sharing her with my fellow trans femmes. I am a 31-year-old trans woman looking to get another woman pregnant. And of course, you can only do that because biological man. So, I mean, all sorts of disgusting stuff. I cannot even begin to read to you everything that was uncovered by the saints over at the Lynnwood Times, who truly had to dig deep into the bowels of the internet to find some of this stuff. But again, at the very base level, Jessica's OnlyFans account is public, and it has Jessica's picture. It's clearly Jessica Roberts, who's just been selected to fill this vacancy on the Lynnwood City Council. Pictures and all, right? So the Lynnwood City Council is now calling an emergency meeting where they're going to reconsider this appointment, which I think at this point you kind of have to. So even the very, very woke Lynnwood City Council's like, some new things have come to light. This is maybe not the person that we should select to fill this vacancy. So again, salacious, crazy. Obviously, this is not someone who's fit for public office. But it is what happens when identity is the only thing that matters in a state like Washington. We already have on this, it's a relatively small city, right? It's already gotten so much of attention because of another council member, Josh Binda. Josh Binda has gotten away with countless things because of his identity, because he's a young black man who I guess first got active in politics through the BLM movement. And I mean, Josh Binda has done, posting shirtless, suggestive photos on social media when he's talking about speeches he gives to children, misuse of campaign funds, not even living in the city of Lynnwood, registering and voting at a place he doesn't live anymore, which is a crime, and he still hasn't resigned for it. But one of the things we kept saying about Josh Binda is a white straight dude never would have gotten away with the things that Josh Binda has gotten away with. And frankly, Josh Binda wouldn't have been elected if it wasn't this BLM color of his skin background. So not only does he get elected for that because he had no qualifications whatsoever to do the job, and many of the qualifications he put on his resume, it turns out, weren't even true. But then he gets away with all these things that would tank anyone else's career in an environment where identity politics doesn't rule the day. And so now you have, let's fill this vacancy. Who can we find? Trans person. You know that Jessica Roberts was only selected so they could be like, we have a trans person on the council. So let's not do any due diligence. That would be hateful, right? Bigoted, maybe even transphobic. To look into the background of this trans person, let's just give him a job on the council. And then we're checking all the boxes. We got all the necessary groups to fulfill our identity obsession. And this is what happens when identity politics is the only thing that matters to you. And then again, I mean, with Josh Binda, it doesn't matter at that point what comes out. I mean, thankfully, this came out early enough where they can now walk back from it, and it's grotesque enough where I think that it gives them a little bit of cover. But you don't think that there's going to be activists who are like, this is incredibly transphobic, and who are going to call me transphobic online because we're criticizing it and sharing all these posts? Again, if the only thing is Jessica Roberts was a transgender person, it would be just another day in Washington state. But when you're a transgender person and you choose, or a non-transgender person, just a person, and you choose to run an OnlyFans account where you're posting sexually explicit content, and when you're on Reddit talking about really bizarre, grotesque fetishes and a desire to impregnate other people, women, and then pass them off to your other trans femmes, like that clearly crosses a line, right? But none of this would be a problem if we actually did due diligence into people we elected into office, even if they're under one of those protected classes and you're very concerned about looking into them because you could be dubbed racist or you could be dubbed a transphobe. I mean, remember, Josh Binda had the NAACP hold a press conference on his behalf saying that the criticism of him was racist. Wasn't about what he actually did and taking responsibility for what he actually did. The literal NAACP had a press conference calling all of us racist for calling Josh Binda out for clearly poor, unacceptable behavior of an elected official. So if you want identity politics to rule the day, this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with a city council member who posts on OnlyFans and has a cannibalism fetish. Okay, that's what you get.